a handgun and his finger is in the trigger.
Can the victim's past lead Kenda to his killer?
The last time his roommate saw him, he had some valuable coins.
He is shocked as an average person never sees things like this.
Then, death claims a beloved mother of 5.
They started telling me, there's a dead girl lying in your bedroom.
Oh my God.
What looks like a suicide leaves Kenda with doubts.
She hated guns. We couldn't believe it.
Nothing about this seems right to me. And now our mission is to find out what he has to say for himself. I always assess people's body language. They slump their shoulders. They look at the floor. They have the distinct look of a guilty person.
On a cold January morning, EMT partners Dave Marquez and James Bell have pulled into a local gas station.
Come on, Davey boy, let's go. It's getting cold in here.
You're funny.
Medic 34, we have a report of an unconscious male bleeding outside in the 200 block of North Union Boulevard.
Well, it's a typical day for them, and all of a sudden they hear the call come over the radio.
Come on, we got a call. We gotta go. 10-4.
So they stop what they're doing and proceed to the 200 block of North Union Boulevard.
What's interesting is that this isn't the type of crime that you would see in broad daylight. So I imagine for the people who came across the victim, there was a lot of curiosity about what was going on.
He still is holding a handgun and his finger is in the trigger. And so they feel like they need to take care of that situation before they're able to administer any aid to this person.
Get everybody back.
Is it the kind of thing where maybe he's gonna roll over, and use that weapon?
He does appear to have some signs of life, and even some kind of twitching reaction could cause a discharge of the weapon. So they have to really approach him with a lot of caution.
Across town, Lieutenant Joe Kenda is in the middle of renewing his handgun qualifications.
The requirement on the police department was you had to qualify with your pistol once a month. So you would go to a police range and you would fire your weapon. Colorado can be bitterly cold in January, but the PD has policies in place. If it's your time to shoot and it's 20 below zero, you better be at the range because that's where you're supposed to be.
Excuse me, Lieutenant. Phone call just came in. They're requesting you on Union Boulevard. There's been some kind of shooting.
Okay, thanks.
I was at the range, suffering in the weather.
Gotta go. All right, next time.
And I left. Turning the heater in the car on to full blast and then driving over to the scene.
Hey, Lieutenant.
Hey, Tammy. So what do we got?
Apparently it was a pretty wild scene. Medics found the man twitching on the curb, and he had a gun in his hand.
EMTs, but we also train them for crime scenes, not to move things unless they're absolutely necessary. So the EMT felt it was crucial that he get that gun away from him.
It was a little dicey, but they were able to get the weapon away without it discharging.
What do we know about the victim?
Not much. He didn't have ID on him.
The officers at the scene, they report that there was a Caucasian male suffering at least one gunshot wound to the chest. He's taken to Memorial Hospital, and he's pronounced DOA.
The victim may be gone, but Kenda has little trouble determining the spot where EMTs found him.
He's collapsed because of the temperature. The blood is frozen.
There's his weapon, and it is loaded.
The gun has 6 live Remington Peters .357 Magnum hollow point bullets loaded in the cylinder.
Hasn't even been fired.
As to why it hasn't been fired, I don't have any idea. You have a reasonable assumption to believe that our man here got himself into a gunfight, and he's obviously the loser. He never got a round off, so maybe he's not very good at gunfights. Who knows?
I'll go ahead and run the serial number to see what we can find out.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
The serial number is always run through the system to determine if there is ownership. There is a firearms transaction record that is available, so we're hopeful what we can learn about this individual.
While his team checks the gun serial number, Kenda and Detective Skip Arms head to Memorial Hospital to get a first-hand look at the victim.
Hello, detectives. Hey, Doc. So what we got? Come take a look at this.
He has a gunshot wound in the right side of the chest at an angle. He's shot in the heart or in the aorta at least, which is an absolute fatal shot. There's no stippling or tattooing, no powder, so it probably some distance from where his shooter was standing.
But actually, he's been shot twice. Help me flip him over. So the second round goes into his shoulder and enters into the chest cavity as well.
The doctor points out an entrance gunshot wound in his back. So what does that mean? It's possible he takes the first shot in the chest and he runs from that shot and is shot again. But did he get shot again in 0.5 seconds or did he get shot again in a minute and a half?
I don't think he went far after he received these wounds.
The doctor didn't believe that the individual would have been able to travel very far before collapsing. So this is something that had to have happened fairly close by to where he was found.
But Kenda's questions about where the shooting occurred can wait. First, he and Detective Arms must determine who is this person.
Let's get a picture of him. Maybe somebody will recognize him, even the way he looks. Guys, there's a camera right here. Can we tilt his head up a bit? Yeah, sure. All right, thanks, Doc. Yep, good luck, man. Do me a favor. Call down the station and have them get a description of this guy out to the public.
Will do. And hopefully they'd finish tracing the serial number on that gun.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, I was just looking for you.
Well, hello there, stranger.
Hello, dear.
In 1987, my wife was employed at Memorial Hospital, so she was working that day.
I'll see you later.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Skip. Bye, Skip.
Just got off the phone with the station. Turns out the gun that our victim was holding was registered to a Steve Grove.
All right, let's go see if we can find an address for him.
Well, is that Stephen Grove laying in the hospital morgue, or is it somebody else?
Using the information provided on the gun registration, Kenda and Arms head out, hoping they finally identified their victim.
We go over to the address, and we're hoping at that point that we can find somebody who knows who Steve Grove is and tell us something about him.
We're the CSPD.
You know a gentleman named Steve Grove?
Yeah, that's me. What's going on?
We've got a little problem, Mr. Grove.
I said, we have a man at Memorial Hospital who's been shot to death. He has your gun in his hand. So we're investigating the death of an unknown male, collapsed face down with this gun in his hand. We find the registered owner to be very much alive. He has some explaining to do.
Listen, I have an unidentified dead guy with your fully loaded gun in his hand. Do you mind telling me why that is?
Yeah, my gun was ripped off last week.
Your gun was stolen. Really?
Yeah.
The standard reply to why does this bad guy have your gun is the gun is stolen. You're accustomed to hearing that excuse? How convenient, Mr. Grove.
Yeah, I got the police report and everything if you'd like to see it.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Here you go.
And it's one of our tear sheets. I recognize it immediately.
See, it says right there it was stolen.
Okay, I see it. Take it easy.
So Mr. Grove's standard bad excuse turns out to be an excellent excuse. He didn't have the gun. A burglar had the gun. So that leads to the question, is Mr. X, among his other talents, a burglar?
Once we were comfortable that it was, in fact, a legitimate theft of the gun, we wanted to try to figure out if perhaps he might recognize who the burglar was.
I've got a picture I want to show you. I want you to tell me if you recognize the guy in it. Before I do, I want to warn you, it's not an easy one to look at, okay?
Okay. Man, that's not pretty.
You recognize the guy?
No. Not at all.
Okay, thank you. So he's a burglar. And Mr. Grove has no clue who he is.
The investigation appears to be stalling out until Kenda receives a much welcome tip.
Lieutenant Kenda.
We got a telephone call from a woman who was an apartment manager, and based on the initial information that had been put out to the public for assistance, she thought she recognized the description as to somebody she knew.
I'll write this down. What's his name? Scott Fulbright. And his roommate, Daryl Brosa, E-R-O-S-A.
At a residence just east of downtown, Kenda hopes this latest lead produces better results.
Do you know someone named Scott Fulbright?
Yeah, that's my roommate. Is he in some kind of trouble?
I think it'd be best if we sat down.
Okay. Sorry about the mess. We don't have people over very often.
We tell him we are investigating a shooting incident in which we believe that Scott Fulbright is potentially the victim of multiple gunshot wounds that has caused his death.
I have a picture I want you to take a look at.
And yeah, that's my roommate.
Mystery solved. Scott Fulbright is Mr. X.
What happened to him?
Well, that's what we're trying to find out. Can you tell us about him?
I haven't known him for very long.
According to Daryl Brosa, Scott Fulbright is a 23-year-old building custodian from Texas.
He says that he met him when he was out hiking one day. Scott Fulbright newly arrived in the area, needed a place to stay. They kind of hit it off.
Daryl told us that Scott was kind of in a tough place. He wasn't happy with his job, and Daryl offered up to let Scott live with him.
The first thing you asked is if he was in any trouble. Why would you ask that?
Oh, man. Scott was a great guy, but as I got to know him a little better, I realized he had had some money problems, and he didn't always do the right thing.
Daryl was able to tell the police that Scott had been involved in burglaries, that he maybe was not the clean-cut guy that he thought he was originally.
You ever see him with a gun?
Yeah, just recently. He was sitting right over there cleaning it. What is that, man?
What do you think it is? It's a gun. Check it out.
What the hell, dude? Get that out of here.
Can you describe it?
It was a big revolver, you know? Black with wood grips on it.
It basically matched the description of both the gun that we found at the scene as well as what was described by Steve Grove in his theft.
Did he commit any of the crimes around here?
Yeah. I was actually with him for one of them.
You were with him?
Yeah, but I had no idea what he was up to. We were just in my car, and he asked me to wait for him while he ran into this guy's house. When he came out, he had all these coins on him.
So coins draw burglars like a magnet. You could hit the jackpot and find that rare coin that some person has that is extremely valuable.
And what'd you say when you saw these coins?
I didn't know what to say.
This is good. Hey, just hang here. I'm just gonna run in and talk to him. 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
All right, hurry up.
All right, let's go. Come on.
Where'd you get those?
I took them.
You took them?
Yeah, I need it more than he did. Drive, come on.
But that's why I was trying to get him to move out. I swear to you, I had no idea he was going to steal those coins.
Well, I appreciate your help.
Yes, sir.
We'll let ourselves down.
So now our hero has coins he's taken in a burglary. He's got a gun. Maybe now he's going to be an armed robber.
On a hunch, Kenda reaches out to dispatch to see if there's recently been any armed robberies in the area.
Yes, Lieutenant. We've got officers right now investigating an armed robbery at a precious metals dealer on North Union Boulevard. It happened earlier today.
Do you happen to know if they deal in rare coins?
Affirmative.
10-4, Kenda out. All right, let's go.
What if he believed that he's going to walk in this business with a very large gun and he's going to scare everybody to death and he's going to get money? This certainly has our interest. We have finally identified our victim. He is Scott Fulbright. We know he likes coins, and we just are investigating, as we speak, an armed robbery of a gold, silver, and rare coin dealer in this same neighborhood. Is Fulbright our man? Well, let's go see. This place is only a couple of blocks away from where Mr. X is found. There's a guy coming out emptying the trash.
How you doing? I'm Lieutenant Kenda.
All right.
Do you work here?
Oh, yeah, I'm actually the owner, David Bayek.
Do you mind if we come in and ask you a few questions?
Yeah, sure.
When Kenda enters the coin shop, he's surprised to find no overt signs that a robbery has recently transpired.
Nothing appears to be out of place. Nothing appears to be broken. The cases are all intact. Everything looks quite normal.
So did you happen to get a good look at this guy?
Yes.
We have a photograph of your robbery suspect.
Oh my God, yes, that's him. That's him. Arthur, come here, quick. Take a look. Isn't that the guy that was in here?
Yeah, that's the guy.
Owner David Bayek and employee Arthur Jorgensen explain that around 11 a.m., David pulled a gun on a would-be robber.
Did I do that? I didn't even know I shot him.
It's clear to me from his expression and the look on his face, he had no idea that the armed robber was even hurt.
Well, most business owners have a weapon nearby that they can get to in the event of a robbery. They were defending themselves, shots were fired, and they had actually hit the suspect.
Well, before we go any further, I'm gonna have to advise you of your rights. Because there's a death involved, there's a possibility that charges can be filed.
Anytime anybody dies violently, as Mr. Fulbright certainly did, their potential exists for felony criminal charges. So we advise David and his partner both of their rights.
But we really have to try to pin down what occurred to see if we have somebody that's going to be charged with murder, or is this going to be basically a justified shooting because it was in self-defense?
That's all right. We'll talk.
You're sure about that?
Yes.
Let's talk over here.
So we independently interviewed both individuals to tell us the details of what happened when Scott Fulbright entered this business.
Tell me what happened here.
Well, I was opening up just like any other day. So this guy comes in and just immediately just doesn't feel right about him, you know?
David explains that he just looks like a kind of a shady character. And it made me nervous when I saw him.
Morning, sir. How can we help you today?
He's sort of casing out the place, kind of wandering around, and I look over for a second. The next thing I know,
Give me the money! Give me the money!
Now, armed robbers are usually not violent. They want to threaten you, frighten you into giving them what they want. In this case, he wants the money back.
There's no money!
I keep a gun in my vest, so I reach over for it.
David has a Colt Cobra 2-inch 38 caliber revolver. He's not that familiar with them, but he believes his partner's about to die.
There's no money! There's no money!
In his excitement, he has an accidental discharge. Fortunately for his partner, and fortunately for him, Mr. Fulbright didn't start shooting.
He's aiming his gun at me. And I fired 2 shots.
Did you get him? I don't know.
There's no blood in the store, because of course he's wearing a heavy coat, so any blood's contained in his clothing. But David doesn't know if he hit him or not. He doesn't think he did. Well, now he knows he not only hit him, he killed him.
Hearing David's description of the shooting, Kenda now understands the odd placement of the wounds found on Scott's body.
If rounds are fired in rapid succession, sometimes just the initial energy from the first gunshot is going to contribute to spinning a body around. So that would be consistent of the suspect turning to leave in an effort to get away.
This is awful. Feel sick.
We'll stay in touch, let you know what's happening. Thank you.
I'm sure that David and Arthur wake up every day, think about, this isn't something we wanted to do. It'd be a heavy, heavy burden on your heart to know that you have taken someone's life. But in that instance, you do what you think is right to protect yourself.
Once this investigation was completed, we present it to the district attorney's office for their review. It was their determination that this was self-defense. So there were no charges that were ever filed against David for his actions in taking the life of Scott Fulbright.
Mr. Fulbright engages in armed robbery, which by nature is a dangerous business. He found out how dangerous.
Coming up, a single gunshot takes an innocent life, and a minute piece of evidence holds the key to unlocking a mysterious murder.
This is an absolute game changer. What we suspected could be true, now we know is true.
After working through an action-packed Halloween weekend, Lieutenant Kenda is finally relaxing at home, hoping for a chance to watch the 11 o'clock news.
Something the police look forward to is the wrap-up of the Halloween weekend, because everybody's wearing a mask, everybody robs everybody else. You're concerned about little kids out walking down the street. So I'm watching the end of the news, and the phone call comes.
It's Kenda.
They have a shooting victim, and I'm off to work.
Hey, Lieutenant.
How you doing? So what we got?
Got a female victim with a gunshot wound to the head.
Police identify the victim as 29-year-old Tina Lovato, a dedicated mother of 5.
Any leads on what happened?
Appears to be a possible suicide. When I got here, there were 2 guys standing over. Looks like they know her.
All right, so take a look.
Yes, sir.
In the front living room, Kenda gets his first look at the deceased.
There's no question she's been shot in the head. There's a great deal of hemorrhagic bleeding, very thick blood everywhere. It's a mess. There's an effect that happens to the human eyes and a human head. It's called raccooning. The human head is a vacuum. You introduce a supersonic projectile into that vacuum. It results in an implosion. The eyes bulge, hence the expression raccooning.
This raccooning effect tells us that the weapon had to be close proximity to the skin or the muzzle. There's a Ruger Red Hawk 357 Magnum on the scene in the immediate vicinity of the victim. So it appears that she shot herself.
Let's have the coroner check her hands for trace blood evidence and do a GSR test as well.
Yes, sir.
What's this? I Heart Darren. What are the names of the guys that are possible witnesses?
Darren Carroll and Bert Lewan.
Darren Carroll, the man standing outside, is involved romantically with this victim. He was found kneeling over the body when the police officers arrived.
It's time to go talk to these guys.
Lieutenant, one thing about Darren, he has some blood spatter on him.
Most likely the victim's blood. So he is, at a minimum, a close eyewitness.
Any information on the other guy?
Yes, sir. Bert is her cousin.
All right, I want to talk to the family member first.
Yes, sir.
Bert is related to the victim, and Darren is apparently in love with the victim.
Bert? Yeah. I'm Lieutenant Kenda. Sorry about what happened to your cousin.
This is rough.
I was really close to Tina. We actually grew up kind of rough because our mom passed away, and so my dad had her raises. She started a young family, and she just did the best she could to raise her kids. She was a good person.
Can you tell me what happened tonight?
She was really upset. I should have seen this coming. Her brother just went to prison, and her boyfriend Darren and I, we just wanted to cheer her up.
That was so much fun, guys.
Bert says they all got pretty drunk. And once they got home from the bar, that Tina and Darren started having an argument when they were together in the next room. So he decides he better look in on him and see that everything's okay. He sees him talking quietly and kissing. He decides that, well, whatever it was, it certainly isn't an issue now.
And so I just walked away. That's when I heard a gunshot.
He finds Darren kneeling over her.
Oh my God. What happened? He shot himself.
Oh my God. I didn't know what to do. I was in shock. So I just ran and called 911.
Now we know that Darren was in the room alone with the victim when the shot was fired.
Thank you.
So now our mission is to talk to Darren and find out what he has to say for himself.
Darren? I'm Lieutenant Kenda. Sorry about what happened. I understand that you and Tina were dating?
I met Tina when we were about 12 years old. We had maintained a relationship, as far as friends, all through going up to school, and then connected into a physical relationship, and her and her kids moved down to live with me in Colorado Springs. Our relationship was going really good.
So what happened here tonight?
Tina hasn't exactly been herself lately. We knew she was really depressed.
Darren pretty much supports what Bert says. She'd been very depressed. They thought to go out, have a few drinks, and she'd feel better.
That was.
When they finally came back from the bar,
Come on, let's go to bed.
they got in a little bit of an argument.
We'd had a lot to drink already. She wanted to go back out again. I tell her I had to go to work the next day, and I couldn't.
Come on, Darian. Let's go to another bar or something. I want to go out.
To another bar.
I got mad,
Fine, you want to go? Go. Just leave me alone, huh? Get out of here.
and I took my jacket off, and I had a .357 revolver that I always had in a shoulder holster.
Darren admits that he carries a gun.
Okay. I'm sorry, babe. I'm sorry. Come here.
said, I'm sorry. And she hugged me and we kissed.
Darren tells Kenda that he believes everything is fine when suddenly Tina pulled the gun from his exposed shoulder holster.
He says he realizes what she intends to do. He tries to bear hug her from behind
Stop it, Tina, stop!
to gain control of the weapon.
Stop!
She pulls the trigger, shoots herself in the head, and falls to the floor.
Oh my God, Tina!
And he says that's how he gets blood all over him.
I tried to stop her. I couldn't.
I'm very sorry. I understand how difficult this must be.
Though Darren Carroll seems genuinely distraught, Kenda's not sure the incident played out exactly the way it's been described.
How does it go from an evening out drinking and running around to coming home and having an argument over something minor and then kissing and making up and then killing yourself? I'm not comfortable with this at all.
With autopsy results not due until later in the morning, Kenda decides to seek out additional information about Tina.
Bert Lujan has told us that he has informed the family and that the family is gathered at Robert Salazar's house, which is Tina's brother, and they're all aware of her death. So we at least do not have to make a death notification.
Once inside the home, it's clear to Kenda that Tina's family is taking her death extremely hard.
Lieutenant Kenda?
Yes.
I'm Tina's brother, Robert. My cousin Bert told me you guys might be coming by. Listen, can we maybe talk in the kitchen?
Yeah, sure.
I left another detective there with the family, so Robert and I now have this opportunity to speak privately.
Very sorry all this happened. What was it you wanted to tell me?
It's just this whole thing, Bert calling me on the phone, telling me that Tina killed herself. There's no way she would have done that.
Well, Robert, this investigation has just taken a 180-degree turn now, hasn't it? So we're going into this case initially, finding two people standing over a dead girl. Both believe that she's committed suicide, and we're now encountering her brother, who said that's not even possible and says he knows why.
And what makes you so sure that Tina wouldn't have shot herself?
Well, first and foremost, her kids. She loved her kids. She would never leave them.
Tina knew how tough it was. Our family raised without our mother. She would never do that to her 5 kids. She loved her kids so much.
There's something else I think you should know.
What's that?
Tina's afraid of guns. She wouldn't even pick one up, let alone shoot herself.
And I say, can you explain to me Tina's relationship with Darren Carroll?
Oh, how do I put this? Tina, she didn't always have the best taste in guys.
He goes on to explain that his sister tends to be attracted to people who turn out to be emotionally abusive and verbally abusive. And Darren is another example. He could be insanely jealous of her if they were out in public.
Never really liked him.
The first time I met him, they had came up to Denver, and my sister wanted to go out dancing. And we were dancing, and he just kept getting jealous over her own brother dancing with her. So it was like, it threw a vibe off that I didn't like at all. So I really didn't care for the guy.
Look, Tina didn't do this. She didn't kill herself. Somebody killed her.
Robert Salazar is Tina's brother. He has a feeling and an impression of her that he thinks is accurate. Could it also be that Tina, in a fit of depression, kills herself? Yeah, that could still be true.
Well, thank you, Robert. It's been very helpful. Again, I'm very sorry for your loss. I'll be in touch.
So we're still in a position of not knowing. We need hard evidence to tell us what happened to Tina Lovato. That I hope to gain at an autopsy.
Later that morning, Kenda meets with the coroner at the morgue.
The doctor has already examined her to a large extent, and what he has to say to me is an absolute game changer.
Come take a look at this. The gunshot wound is 5 centimeters off the center line of the lower jaw. It has an imperfect seal, and it was at close range. Right.
What he means by that is there is some degree of distance between the end of the muzzle and the flesh itself on her head. In self-inflicted wounds, people press the gun in to make certain that they're going to die.
It's not what I typically see in cases of suicide. Right. Do we know if she was right or left-handed? Yeah, her family told one of my detectives that she's right-handed. Why? We found traces of blood spatter in the palm of her right hand.
Now, it would be impossible for Tina Lovato to be holding a gun and allowing blood spatter to somehow magically pass through the grip and reach her palm undisturbed. She absolutely, positively, beyond any doubt, did not have a gun in her hand when she was shot. If it wasn't in her hand, she didn't shoot. Somebody else did.
The following morning, Kenda brings Tina's boyfriend, Darren Carroll, down to the station for a second, more pointed conversation.
Hello again, Mr. Carroll.
Hello.
I always assess people's body language initially. What are you doing in here that indicates your level of involvement? Because people unconsciously do it. And his appearance is very damning. Everything about him says, I killed Tina Lovato.
All right, here's the deal, Darren. We have blood evidence that proves there's no way Tina could have shot herself. I mean, how do you explain the blood in her hand?
I don't know how that happened.
Then we start hitting him with some of the conflicting evidence. We start getting those typical answers you almost see out of a 5-year-old when you ask them, hey, who broke this? I don't know. You can't explain it, so it becomes an I don't know.
I keep pressing the point with him. I just keep at him and at him and at him.
Darren, we found out that Tina was terribly afraid of guns. Nothing of what you said works.
I didn't mean for this to happen. It was an accident.
And he finally just stops everything, and he starts to cry.
Well, like I said before, Tina and I were arguing about going back out to another bar again.
And that's all? You weren't fighting about anything else?
Yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't too happy. Before, when we went out, guys would always look at her and try to hit on her and come on to her and stuff, and then I just got sick of it, you know?
Exactly the behavior that men engage in who are emotionally abusive. Exactly the behavior that Robert Salazar said he was aware of.
We made up when we started kissing.
Can we please go out? Come on, please.
Fine, you wanna go? Come on, let's go. But I'm gonna tell you, the next guy that looks at me funny or that tries to hit on you, I'm gonna shoot him in the face.
Put that away.
So that's how the gun gets introduced.
Stop. Put your hand off.
Put it away.
Stop it.
Put this away.
They apparently struggle over the possession of it.
Stop it! Let go! Stop!
We don't know why, but they wind up in a struggle over it. Maybe she wants to put it away. What kind of sense does it make to have a physical confrontation in close proximity to each other over a loaded gun? What's going to happen here?
Wait! Stop it! Put the gun down! Stop!
Wait!
Tina, stop!
Bang is what's going to happen.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
The next thing that I remembered was that I heard the gun. I was behind her to where my face was right here, and right here her hair flew up when that gunshot went off.
Oh my God. Tina! Tina!
I laid her down on the carpet, and it was like blood was just coming up from the carpet.
Oh my God.
And I didn't know where it was coming from, so I started grabbing her head all around, you know, trying to find out where the hole was at. I wanted to put my finger in there and stop the bleeding. I had recollection of having the gun, you know, in my hand, and but I don't have the recollection of pulling the trigger. It was like when I heard the gunshot, it was like I came into a whole different realm, I guess.
It was an accident. You gotta understand, okay? I didn't mean for this to happen.
Of course you didn't, Darren.
I told him, Darren, it doesn't matter how sorry you are, how little you meant it. You recklessly were in possession and the handling of a firearm, and Tina Lovato paid for that with her life. You're responsible for this death. You, not her, not the man on the moon, just you.
After much consideration, Darren Carroll accepts a plea bargain and is sentenced to 6 years in prison for reckless manslaughter.
For the rest of his days.
Ohio, 1999. The small town of Millersburg wakes up to another foggy morning, streets slick with the remnants of last night's rain, the kind that seeps into your shoes and lingers. People go about their routines unaware that a nightmare has already taken root, invisible but heavy, resting quietly in the corners of the local diner, in the hush of the school hallways, in the creak of old floorboards of houses that hold memories too fragile to touch. On that Tuesday morning, a mother's scream cuts through the mist, slicing the air with a sharpness that freezes the heart, and suddenly the town is no longer safe, no longer familiar. At 6:45 a.m., local police receive a call. A child has gone missing. 11-year-old Emily Carter, last seen leaving for school, never arrives. Her backpack lies abandoned near the cracked sidewalk, straps dangling like fragile tendrils of hope stretching into the unknown. Neighbors whisper, some claiming to have seen shadows moving near the old warehouse district, some swearing a figure lurked behind the grove of trees that borders the river. But nothing concrete, nothing that can be pinned down. Just fragments. Just fear. Detective Mark Hensley, seasoned, sharp, the kind of man whose instincts have been honed on cases that leave others sleepless, takes the call. He remembers every missing child file, the ones where the hours ticked by like seconds, each moment a weight, a pressure, a threat. Driving through the narrow streets, the smell of damp asphalt filling the cruiser, he can almost hear the echo of Emily's laughter in his mind, a haunting melody that refuses to fade. The Carter home is silent when he arrives, the walls holding a stillness so thick it presses against his chest. Her mother, Karen Carter, crumpled in the doorway, eyes wide, hands trembling, repeats the same words over and over. She was just there, she was right there. Her voice cracks like glass. Her father, Paul, stands behind her, jaw tight, eyes scanning every corner, every shadow, as if by sheer will he could call her back. The scene outside is a storm of whispers and murmurs. Children at the bus stop clutch each other's hands, eyes darting to the cops with a mixture of hope and terror. Neighbors gather in clusters, gossip mixing with panic, the town's heartbeat accelerating with every rumor. The first officer on the scene, Officer Ramirez, notes footprints near the edge of the riverbank, muddied impressions in the soft soil. Nothing else. No sign of struggle, no weapon, nothing. It is as if Emily simply evaporated into the morning air, leaving only uncertainty behind. Hours bleed into days. The search expands. Helicopters hum overhead, casting wide, circling shadows across the patchwork of fields and back roads. K-9 units scour the woods, noses to the ground, barking at invisible scents. Volunteers comb through every inch of the town and surrounding areas, flashlights cutting through the darkness like knives, calling Emily's name into the void. Every "Are you there?" echoes back from the trees, unanswered, unbroken, unbearable. Hensley organizes the effort, coordinates with state police, expands the radius, yet every lead twists and turns into a dead end. Each day, the weight of failure presses heavier. Then comes the first anomaly. A note, scribbled on lined notebook paper, tucked into a hollow of the old oak tree near the river. She's watching, it reads, letters uneven, shaky, like the hand of a child trying to mimic an adult. It sends shivers through the investigation team. Is it Emily? A prankster? Or something darker? Forensics examine the paper. No fingerprints. No DNA. Just the message, stark and ominous, a whisper in the silence that raises more questions than answers. Weeks pass. The town holds vigils. Candles flicker in windows, their tiny flames defying the darkness. Flyers with Emily's picture are posted everywhere, her smile innocent, unaware of the storms swirling around her. The police interrogate dozens of leads, each suspect more frustrating than the last. Neighbors become wary, doors are locked tighter, trust erodes. Rumors spiral, sightings at gas stations, someone claiming to have seen a girl fitting Emily's description near a highway, in a van, then gone. Each report is checked, verified, and dismissed, leaving only exhaustion and dread. Hensley digs deeper into Emily's life. Friends, schoolmates, teachers. Nothing out of the ordinary. No enemies. No signs of rebellion, no notes, no clues in diaries, nothing. Except for the warehouse district, the place kids whisper about but adults avoid. Old stories, tales of trespassers, odd men, shadows moving at night. Could Emily have been curious? Could she have wandered? The thought gnaws at Hensley. He walks the streets himself, eyes scanning for gaps, for doors left unlocked, windows ajar, places where danger could hide in plain sight. Months pass. The initial frenzy fades. Media moves on. Cold stares replace warm concern in the grocery store. The Carter family grows quieter, their grief an undercurrent in the town, a constant hum of sorrow. Emily's bedroom remains untouched, toys still on the floor, her drawings still taped to the walls. Her absence permeates the air. Friends drift away, new students arrive, life continues around a void no one can fill. Years accumulate. Cold case files mount in Hensley's office. The Emily Carter file is no different from the dozens of others, faded photographs, typed reports, handwritten notes. But every time he opens it, the memory strikes like lightning. The unresolved, the unknown, the inexplicable. He re-examines the note from the oak tree. Under better lighting, under microscopes and chemical treatments, nothing new emerges. But the feeling, the creeping sensation of being watched, of a presence just beyond the corner of sight, never leaves him. A breakthrough comes when a former neighbor calls, 32 now, voice shaky, trembling, claiming she saw someone in the woods years ago, a figure dragging something, muffled cries swallowed by the wind. Hensley's instincts ignite. He revisits the warehouse district, revisits the riverbank, walking every path, touching every tree, feeling the scars of time and weather and memory. And there it is, something overlooked. A shallow trench, hidden beneath years of leaves, faint impressions that even the trained eye can barely detect. Forensic teams are called back, digging through soil hardened by time. Artifacts, personal items, fragments of fabric, a small shoe. Not much, but enough to reignite hope, enough to remind everyone of the horror that had been dormant. The town stirs. The Carter family is pulled back into the past they tried to leave behind. Media resurfaces, reporters once again at their doorstep, cameras flashing, lights glaring. Public opinion shifts from forgetfulness to fascination to horror. Everyone wants answers, closure, something to reconcile with the pain that had long been buried. Hensley coordinates carefully, aware that even a single misstep could jeopardize fragile evidence. Interviews are revisited, suspects re-examined, timelines reconstructed with meticulous obsession. Even as the pieces slowly align, a shadow of doubt persists. Who was behind this? Why Emily? Why here? The questions ripple outward, touching everyone, coloring ordinary life with a tint of unease. Children are watched closely, parents' nerves fray, the town's identity itself seems altered, irrevocably marked by the unresolved trauma. Hensley sleeps poorly, dreams fragmented, waking to the echo of footsteps in empty hallways, doors creaking, the whisper of a small voice calling out his name. And so the story continues, suspended in time, each detail, each clue, a thread in a web too tangled to unravel quickly. The investigation, relentless yet patient, continues its slow march, driven by a need that cannot be silenced, by questions that demand answers, by a promise that the truth will not remain buried forever. The shadow of Emily Carter, her smile, her absence, the note in the tree, all linger in the consciousness of Millersburg, a reminder of the fragility of safety, of innocence lost, of a small town forever changed by one morning in 1999. The soil in the warehouse district had long kept its secrets, layers of dirt and debris swallowing traces of time, but now, with the forensic team sifting meticulously, the past began to whisper, subtle but insistent. Small fragments of plastic, tiny threads of fabric, a locket half buried, items seemingly insignificant yet heavy with implication. Detective Hensley crouched low, gloved hands brushing the earth gently, each piece telling a story, a map of movements, a frozen heartbeat. He notes the alignment, the spacing, the unnatural arrangement, as if someone had deliberately hidden them in a sequence meant to taunt discovery decades later. Millersburg had forgotten, but the ground had remembered. Karen Carter returns to the scene, hesitant, eyes darting, body tense, every step a negotiation with fear. She traces the shallow trench, now exposed, fingertips grazing the damp soil. Memories flood, unbidden. The morning Emily disappeared, the sound of the bus pulling away, the empty sidewalk, the echo of laughter never to be heard again. She shivers, realizing that every instinct, every warning she had ignored, every glance at the shadows outside her window, had been real. Her grief, once dormant, flares anew. Paul stands a few steps behind, hands clenched, jaw tight, watching his wife confront the earth as if it might return the daughter they lost. The investigation expands. New leads surface from long-forgotten corners of the town. A retired truck driver recalls an abandoned vehicle near the outskirts of Millersburg on the day Emily vanished. Another neighbor, once dismissed for hysteria, insists on recalling a man seen loitering near the school weeks prior. Hensley follows each lead meticulously, mapping them against old police reports, constructing timelines with painstaking care. The cold case file, thick with decades of uncertainty, now begins to breathe with tentative possibility. Every overlooked detail, every trivial observation, becomes a potential key. The media returns like vultures sensing movement. Cameras flash, lights glare, reporters hover. Cold case breakthrough, screams one headline. Emily Carter evidence unearthed after 20 years. Another broadcasts images of the items discovered, zooming in on the worn shoe, the locket's intricate clasp. The town reacts with a mixture of fear, relief, and curiosity. Conversations shift, eyes widen at grocery stores, whispers in hallways grow louder. Even those who had tried to move on find themselves drawn back into the orbit of the unresolved. Hensley meets with forensic psychologists, trying to understand the pattern behind the crime, attempting to profile a suspect who had eluded detection for decades. Patterns emerge, subtle but undeniable: the methodical approach, the careful concealment, the psychological imprint left on the environment. Whoever had taken Emily had done so with premeditation, with a level of calculation that sent shivers down Hensley's spine. He reviews every similar cold case in Ohio and neighboring states, noting eerie similarities: abductions with no clear motive, children taken in broad daylight, evidence left just enough to be found years later. The pattern forms a mosaic of horror that extends beyond Millersburg, a shadow stretching across counties, decades, lives. Witness interviews become crucial. Former classmates, now adults, recall fragments: a figure near the river, a vehicle parked suspiciously, whispered threats heard but forgotten until prompted. Hensley records each account, cross-references inconsistencies, searches for overlaps, patterns, anomalies. One recollection stands out: a neighbor claims to have seen a man repeatedly photographing children near the park, face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat, camera clicking in the early morning mist. The memory, faint and trembling, sends a shiver through the detective. Could it have been the same individual, lurking unnoticed, orchestrating terror quietly, methodically, over time? As the team reconstructs the day of the abduction, Hensley walks the old routes Emily would have taken to school. Side streets, shortcuts through alleys, the overgrown path by the riverbank. He imagines her small frame, backpack bouncing, innocence unguarded, unaware of the predator. Shadows of trees loom like silent witnesses, the wind carrying the faintest echoes of a past too painful to fully comprehend. Each step, each corner, each tree is a reminder of the vulnerability of trust, of the fragility of safety. The locket found in the trench is sent to specialized labs. Fingerprints, DNA, chemical residue. Days stretch into nights. Results trickle in. Partial DNA matches surface, not enough to conclusively identify a suspect, but enough to reignite leads. Hensley revisits old suspects, those previously dismissed for lack of evidence. Interrogations are delicate, careful. Questions probe memories decades old, instincts sharpened by years of investigative patience. Each response is weighed, tested, analyzed for deception, fear, inconsistency. An anonymous tip arrives, voice distorted, claiming knowledge of Emily's fate. Hensley listens, heart racing, pen hovering over notebook. The caller speaks in fragments, cryptic, hinting at locations, describing minutiae that only someone involved, or someone with intimate knowledge, could know. The detective coordinates with local authorities to track the source, triangulate locations, verify authenticity. Suspense coils around the investigation like fog in the morning streets, dense and suffocating. Every word carries weight, every pause threatens revelation or deception. Community reactions intensify. Candlelight vigils held again, more somber, more determined. The public yearns for closure, for justice. Town meetings are tense, parents clinging to children, adults exchanging theories, accusations, memories. Fear intertwines with hope. The Carter family becomes both symbols and sufferers of a nightmare stretching decades, their grief reopened with each revelation. Karen and Paul face media, cameras highlighting the lines of sorrow etched into their faces, words faltering but determined. We just want Emily back. We want to know the truth. Pressure mounts as Hensley pushes forward. Surveillance footage from nearby highways decades ago is unearthed from archives, grainy, unclear, but hints at a white van seen near Millersburg at the approximate time of Emily's disappearance. Cross-referencing old employment records, vehicle registrations, and witness testimonies, the detective begins narrowing the circle. Patterns emerge, visits to isolated locations, previous interactions with local children, suspicious travel behavior. Each discovery is a small explosion, rattling the long-settled dust of a case once thought dormant. A breakthrough comes when forensics identifies traces of a chemical compound on the shoe fragment. Rare, industrial, used in a small local factory that had long since closed. Hensley investigates former employees, patterns of absenteeism, reports of misconduct, rumors of misconduct. The threads, once disparate and fragile, begin weaving a tapestry of possibility. Someone local, someone known, someone capable of careful concealment, someone who had blended into the fabric of the town while orchestrating an atrocity in secret. Night falls, and with it, the town's unease deepens. Hensley revisits the riverbank, flashlight slicing through darkness, imagining Emily's small footsteps along the muddy bank, her laughter stolen by the shadow that had claimed her. He wonders about the predator, about the mind capable of committing such an act and eluding justice for years. Sleep is fleeting, dreams invaded by echoes of that day, by fragments of a girl's smile, by whispers carried in wine through the trees. Time continues to pass, yet the investigation refuses to relent. The cold case, once a file on a shelf, becomes a living entity, demanding attention, demanding truth. Every witness, every fragment of memory, every overlooked detail gains significance. Patterns align, contradictions illuminate hidden paths, and slowly, the haze of decades begins to thin, revealing glimpses of clarity through the fog of uncertainty. The town watches, tense, anxious, hopeful yet fearful. Each development reignites questions, speculation, unease. Parents clutch children tighter, conversations become quieter, doors locked sooner. Millersburg's collective consciousness is stitched with fear and fascination, a fabric woven with threads of hope and dread. The Carter family, though exhausted, holds on, unwilling to let time diminish the fight for justice, unwilling to let memory fade into obscurity. And yet, even as evidence mounts, even as suspects are considered, and leads pursued, a pervasive uncertainty lingers. Who was responsible? Why Emily? How could a life be erased, leaving only shadows, whispers, fragments of memory, and the unyielding question of justice delayed? Hensley confronts the paradox daily, balancing procedural caution with the urgency of the moment, knowing that one wrong step could unravel years of meticulous work. The story of Emily Carter, suspended between the past and the present, between hope and despair, continues to pulse with life in the town, in the investigation, in every whispered memory, every lingering shadow, every haunted glance at the river and the warehouse district. Millersburg holds its breath, knowing that the past is not yet silent, that justice may arrive late but remains inevitable, and that a nightmare frozen in 1999 may finally begin to thaw under the relentless pursuit of truth. Spring in Millersburg carries a deceptive calm, the kind of sunlight that glints off sidewalks and windows, hiding the shadows beneath, the weight of a town still haunted. Detective Hensley drives slowly along the old river road, the wind stirring papers in the cruiser, carrying the faint scent of wet earth, reminding him that nature remembers, that the ground itself never forgets what happened on that fateful day in 1999. Each turn of the wheel, each glance at the overgrown banks, feels like a dialogue with the past. And the past, patient and silent, seems to respond. The anonymous tipster has reappeared, this time with specificity that chills the spine. A location, coordinates barely credible, a shed long abandoned on the outskirts of town. Hensley assembles a team, flashlights and cameras slicing through the dim interior, revealing tools, forgotten crates, the dust of decades. Nothing conclusive yet, but hints of human activity, the faint impression of a mat on the floor, a scrap of fabric wedged in a corner, a shard of plastic that could have once been part of a child's toy. The forensic team catalogs every object with obsessive precision. One misplaced detail could undo 20 years of investigation. Karen Carter and Paul are present but restrained, their grief now tempered by decades of survival. Every finding strikes a chord, reverberating through their memories. Karen touches a rusted nail sticking from a crate, imagining Emily's tiny fingers brushing past, a laugh interrupted, a life frozen. Paul inspects a long-forgotten bicycle frame leaning against the wall, rusted, warped, each scratch a potential clue. They are part observer, part participants in a story they never wanted to relive, yet must confront to reclaim any semblance of justice. Back at headquarters, Hensley pores over old police reports, cross-referencing sightings, timelines, and interviews, seeking discrepancies, overlooked angles, anomalies in memory. The investigation is like a chessboard, each move calculated, anticipating responses from a perpetrator whose identity has remained elusive. Every lead re-examined, every witness questioned anew, the patience of decades now a tool, sharpening the edges of discovery. The cold case file, once dormant, pulses with renewed life. New witnesses surface unexpectedly. A former teacher recalls a man loitering near the playground months before Emily disappeared. His description vague but unnerving, a tall figure with a hat obscuring his features, always observing, never intervening. Hensley listens, fingers tapping the file. He reconstructs the man's potential movements, intersections with the known abduction timeline. Each possibility fuels the investigation, each memory a spark in the darkness. The town's collective anxiety mirrors the detective's own, a shared tension thick as fog over Millersburg. One lead sends Hensley to a defunct industrial site, long since stripped of machinery, walls pockmarked with time, rust seeping into the floor. Here, hidden beneath years of neglect, he finds traces of chemical residue, remnants matching those detected on the shoe fragment recovered from the riverbank. The realization hits like a punch: the perpetrator was local, familiar with the town's terrain, meticulous in concealment, yet careless enough to leave traces that time could not fully erase. The puzzle pieces begin to align with terrifying clarity. A breakthrough emerges from DNA analysis. The partial profile recovered from the locket and shoe fragment matches a suspect previously dismissed, a man who had lived quietly on the outskirts of Millersburg, employed briefly at the very factory connected to the chemical residue, leaving minimal records, interacting minimally, blending seamlessly into the town's fabric. The detective leans back in his chair, the weight of anticipation pressing against his ribs. This is the breakthrough, decades in the making, a fragile line connecting past horrors to present opportunity. Hensley convenes a tactical team, preparing surveillance, gathering warrants, readying for confrontation. The suspect remains unaware that shadows have followed him, footprints mapped, behaviors analyzed, every movement chronicled by law enforcement. The tension is palpable, every second a drumbeat echoing through the quiet corridors of memory and justice. Millersburg waits, holding its breath, the entire town caught in the invisible net woven over 20 years. Karen Carter is present at headquarters during the preparation, eyes fixed on the maps and diagrams spread across the table. She absorbs each detail with a grim determination, remembering the night of Emily's disappearance, the void that followed, the silent years of longing and fear. Paul watches her, his hand resting on hers, both aware that closure is imminent yet terrified of its reality. The town's collective gaze, the weight of decades, converges on this moment. Night falls again, and with it, the town seems to hold its breath. Hensley drives slowly toward the suspect's location, flashers off, lights dimmed. Every street, every corner, every familiar structure now carries the memory of absence. Emily's laughter, her small footsteps, her vanishing, echoes that seem to ride alongside him, guiding, haunting, urging precision and restraint. The operation begins. Tactical units surround the property, silent, calculated, anticipation coiling like a spring ready to snap. Inside the property, the man moves, unaware that the past has caught up with him, that every action is being observed, analyzed, recorded. His movements are methodical, unaware that law enforcement's net, woven patiently, decades in the making, is tightening. The tension is suffocating. Every second stretches into eternity. Outside, the night holds its breath, the town poised on the precipice of revelation. A confrontation unfolds. The suspect is apprehended without incident, resistance minimal, his face reflecting shock, disbelief, and perhaps, recognition of inevitability. Handcuffs click, cameras flash, voices murmur, the long shadow of the past finally confronting the present. Hensley watches, a mix of relief and lingering unease. The town's nightmare, 20 years in the making, is now tangible, anchored in reality, yet the emotional reverberations are only beginning. Back at headquarters, interrogations commence. The suspect's demeanor is calm, calculated, revealing fragments, deflecting, yet under pressure, inconsistencies emerge. Hensley and his team navigate carefully, each question, each pause, a probe into the psyche of someone who has hidden in plain sight. Slowly, meticulously, the narrative of Emily's abduction, the concealment, the movement, the choices made, begins to emerge from layers of silence, deceit, and fear. Meanwhile, the town awakens to the news, disbelief mixing with cautious hope. Local radio, television, and newspapers broadcast updates. Emily Carter cold case breakthrough, suspect apprehended after 20 years. Conversations in homes, offices, and schools swell with emotion. Relief tinged with horror, the realization that a predator lived among them for decades, unnoticed, leaves the community reeling. Memories of Emily, once faint, return vividly, a reminder of innocence interrupted, lives forever altered. Karen and Paul are informed, their hands trembling, hearts racing. Hope and fear intertwine. The prospect of answers, the potential for closure, is tempered by decades of trauma, memories of vanished time, of absence, of the unknown. They sit together in the quiet of their living room, holding each other, absorbing the news, understanding that the journey to truth, while beginning to resolve, has only just started in emotional terms. Evidence collected is catalogued meticulously. Forensics continue to analyze items recovered, reconstruct movements, timelines, interactions. Every scrap of evidence is a testament to decades of investigation, patience, and persistence. The meticulous work transforms the intangible fear of years into tangible narrative, bringing clarity to a story shrouded in shadow. The community responds cautiously. Vigils are held once again, but this time, they carry an air of determination, a shared acknowledgement of resilience, and the lingering reminder that darkness can linger unnoticed. Parents embrace children a little tighter, neighbors exchange wary glances, and the town collectively begins a slow exhale, aware that closure is possible, yet understanding that scars remain. Even as the investigation progresses, Hensley knows that finality is fragile. The suspect may reveal only fragments, the truth may remain partially obscured, and the emotional fallout will persist long after physical evidence is secured. The detective feels the weight of responsibility, aware that decades of patience have led to this moment, yet mindful that justice is an ongoing process, demanding precision, empathy, and unwavering commitment. And so the town, the family, and the investigation move forward, each step measured, each revelation illuminating the long shadow of 1999. Emily Carter's story, once suspended in absence, begins to regain shape, voice, and presence, not just in evidence, but in memory, in narrative, in the collective consciousness of Millersburg, a community forever touched by one small girl whose disappearance changed everything. The courthouse looms over Millersburg like a silent sentinel, its stone facade etched with history, each crack a witness to countless battles fought for justice, yet none as haunting as this one. Detective Hensley walks the steps slowly, the morning sun casting elongated shadows, the air crisp, carrying the weight of anticipation and fear. Inside, the chambers hum with a tense energy, reporters scribbling furiously, cameras strategically positioned, and townsfolk pressed against walls, eager for the unfolding drama. The suspect sits alone, expression blank, hands folded, the weight of decades pressing down, yet appearing unervingly composed, a predator finally cornered. Karen and Paul Carter enter, their steps tentative, hearts beating erratically. For 20 years, they have lived in a fog of absence, the void where Emily's laughter and presence should have been. Now, confronted with the tangible embodiment of that nightmare, reality crashes into memory. The courtroom feels stifling, every whisper amplified, every glance weighted with the gravity of long-delayed justice. The air is thick, charged, each breath a struggle against anticipation and dread. Hensley watches from the sidelines, clipboard in hand, noting reactions, tensions, and expressions. Each movement in the room becomes a puzzle piece, each expression a potential indicator of truth or deception. The legal machinery begins its careful, deliberate dance, lawyers filing motions, prosecutors preparing evidence, defense scrutinizing every word. The community watches, holding collective breath, waiting for the veil of mystery that has hung over them for decades to finally lift. Opening statements cut through the silence like sharpened knives. The prosecutor lays out the narrative with precision, a tapestry of facts and timelines, eyewitness accounts, forensic evidence meticulously collected, and the haunting specter of absence that has defined the Carter family's lives for 20 years. Every word carries weight, every sentence a reminder of loss and perseverance. The defense counters with measured calm, challenging timelines, questioning reliability of memory, scrutinizing procedural integrity, yet the weight of accumulated evidence presses forward, unrelenting. Witnesses are called. Former neighbors, childhood friends, forensic specialists, law enforcement officers, all recount fragments, each testimony a brushstroke painting the broader picture. One neighbor recalls the odd white van parked near the riverbank, license plate partially obscured, man lurking nearby, hands clasped over his face as if shielding guilt from the sun. Another testifies about the abandoned shed on the outskirts, detailing dust patterns, disturbed soil, and faint traces of fabric that matched the recovered locket and shoe fragment. The courtroom listens, rapt, the tension palpable, as the past materializes in testimony, converging with the present in a collision of time and truth. Karen and Paul sit rigid, absorbing each detail. Emotions churn violently beneath their composed exterior, grief, anger, hope, disbelief, all vying for dominance. They are witnesses to both revelation and reminder, each testimony reopening old wounds while inching toward closure. Hensley observes them, noting the resilience required to endure decades of uncertainty, the strength necessary to confront the person responsible for stealing a daughter, a sister, a childhood itself. Forensics experts take the stand, presenting findings with methodical precision. DNA matches, chemical residues, fabric analysis, soil displacement, all converge to create a narrative no longer theoretical, but anchored in empirical truth. The air is tense, punctuated by the rustle of papers, the click of camera shutters, and the subtle murmurs of disbelief. The defense probes every angle, attempting to unravel the meticulous reconstruction, yet the evidence holds, a web of undeniable detail that has survived decades of neglect, missteps, and the erosion of memory. As the trial progresses, the suspect's demeanor begins to crack. Small twitches, fleeting eye movements, a subtle tension in posture, indicators that decades of concealment cannot entirely suppress under the weight of scrutiny. Hensley observes keenly, noting psychological fractures, moments where the facade wavers. The courtroom feels like a crucible, the past and present fused in a relentless quest for truth, each revelation a hammer striking at the foundations of deception. The prosecution introduces new evidence, long-hidden photographs discovered in a storage locker during renewed investigation, depicting locations, objects, even faint glimpses of Emily herself in contexts previously unknown. The courtroom collectively reacts, gasps, murmurs, a collective shiver of horror and fascination. Each image confirms what suspicion hinted at, bridges gaps in timelines, provides tangible connection to the years of absence and mystery that have plagued Millersburg. Hensley recounts the timeline on the stand, meticulously reconstructing the suspect's movements, interactions, and manipulations. Every detail interlocks, a chain spanning decades, meticulously preserved by both the perpetrator's obsession with concealment and the detective's relentless pursuit of clarity. The courtroom listens, rapt, as an invisible hand of history is drawn into focus, revealing patterns previously obscured by time and forgetfulness. The Carter family's presence remains a poignant anchor throughout the trial. Karen's voice, steady despite trembling hands, reads letters Emily wrote before her disappearance, fragments of childhood innocence juxtaposed with the gravity of adult loss. Paul recounts the long nights of searching, the endless conversations with law enforcement, the whispered rumors, the hope that never fully dissipated. Each recollection reverberates through the courtroom, humanizing the narrative, transforming it from sterile evidence to lived experience, raw and unfiltered. Cross-examination by defense attorneys introduces tension, probing for inconsistencies, highlighting decades of fading memory, questioning interpretation of evidence. Yet, the meticulous records, forensic detail, corroborated witness statements, and recently discovered items create a latticework of truth difficult to dismantle. Every attempt at distortion is met with precise rebuttal, measured responses, and an unyielding commitment to justice. The emotional crescendo builds as the trial reaches its climax. Prosecutors detail the culmination of years of investigation, the patience required to piece together fragments, the intricate web of evidence spanning decades. They articulate the impact on the community, the enduring trauma, and the resilience of a family who refused to surrender to uncertainty. The courtroom is silent, every eye fixed, every breath held, as the narrative of abduction, concealment, and eventual revelation unfolds with cinematic intensity. Testimonies of law enforcement personnel illustrate the painstaking work of piecing together a story hidden by time. Photographs, soil analysis, DNA profiling, and witness recollections converge to reconstruct Emily's final hours before disappearance. The suspect's calculated movements, familiarity with the terrain, and repeated manipulations of the environment are outlined, painting a portrait of meticulous planning and psychological manipulation. Each revelation adds weight, a testament to investigative rigor and patience. Finally, the jury is sequestered. The room empties, leaving only echoes of testimony, the residue of decades of fear, and anticipation for the verdict. Outside, Millersburg waits collectively, citizens holding vigil in parking lots, children pressed against car windows, adults exchanging anxious glances. The media broadcasts updates, speculation, analysis, all punctuated by the quiet understanding that justice delayed has demanded a toll measured in decades of human suffering. Karen and Paul sit together in near silence, holding hands, absorbing the finality of courtroom procedure yet acutely aware that emotional resolution is not immediate. Hensley stands nearby, reflecting on the journey, the meticulous work, the decades of dead ends, and the culmination of relentless pursuit of truth. The town holds its breath collectively, knowing that, despite the decades of darkness, the light of revelation is imminent. Even as the trial concludes its initial presentations, the narrative remains suspended, tension unresolved, awaiting the jury's deliberation. The courtroom, charged with emotion, reflects the broader impact on Millersburg, a community scarred yet resilient, bound together by collective memory, and now, the anticipation of accountability. The shadow of 1999, long cast over the town, begins to lift incrementally, revealing both the contours of truth and the lingering fractures in the communal psyche. And so, the case, once cold, now burns with intensity, its narrative, evidence, and emotional weight converging toward a moment that will define closure, justice, and memory in Millersburg. The town watches, hearts tethered to anticipation, the Carter family poised between hope and fear, Detective Hensley a silent sentinel observing the long arc of justice bending, finally, toward truth. The courtroom, the town, and the past converge in a singular, breathless tension, the echoes of absence resonating with every heartbeat, every whisper, every unbroken thread of memory demanding acknowledgement. The jury sits, the weight of decades pressing on their shoulders, the courtroom tense with anticipation, the air thick, almost tangible, vibrating with the echoes of a small girl's absence for 20 years. Outside, Millersburg waits as if the town itself holds its breath. Detective Hensley observes quietly, hands folded, eyes scanning the room, calculating, measuring the pulse of tension that binds everyone present. The suspect remains seated, expression stoic, a mask of composure hiding what might be terror, guilt, or simply practiced detachment. But beneath the calm surface, subtle fissures betray a mind long accustomed to secrecy now confronted by inescapable scrutiny. The first witness returns to the stand, a former neighbor, age-worn, hands trembling slightly as they clutch the microphone. They recount that day, 20 years ago, the morning Emily vanished, every detail etched into memory with unnatural clarity. The white van, the fleeting figure near the river, the odd sense of being watched. Every word resonates, carried through the room with unrelenting precision. Hensley notes subtle reactions from the suspect, tiny shifts in posture, a flicker of eye contact, a shallow exhale, indicators that the past is beginning to fracture the carefully constructed facade. Karen Carter's voice trembles as she reads aloud passages from Emily's diary, retrieved from the bedroom left untouched for decades. Small sketches, fragments of childhood musings, words about school, friends, and fleeting worries now cast in a sinister light. The courtroom is silent, every observer drawn into a small girl's world frozen in time. The absence of closure for 2 decades becomes palpable, a ghostly presence pressing down on the proceedings, demanding acknowledgement and justice. Paul Carter sits rigid beside her, jaw tight, fingers interlocked, absorbing each word with a mix of horror and relief, the years of uncertainty suddenly tangible. Prosecutors present physical evidence, the locket, the fragment of a shoe, chemical residues linking the suspect to the crime scene. Diagrams illustrate movements, timelines reconstructed with painstaking accuracy, showing the orchestration of abduction, concealment, and manipulation of the environment over decades. Hensley's meticulous investigation becomes central, a living thread guiding the courtroom through layers of decades-old mystery. Each revelation is a blow, dismantling denials, exposing concealed truths, connecting past shadows to present accountability. The defense attempts to counter, raising questions about the reliability of memory over 20 years, the interpretation of forensic results, procedural integrity, and the possibility of contamination. Hensley watches, noting the precise rebuttals, the cross-examination of witnesses, the unyielding persistence required to maintain the narrative of truth. The tension in the courtroom escalates with every exchange, a taut wire of anticipation stretching across the room, threatening to snap with emotion, revelation, or unspoken dread. A former schoolmate, now an adult, recounts strange encounters near the riverbank, observations previously dismissed, now re-examined in the light of evidence. A figure lurking in the shadows, the sense of being watched, fleeting glimpses of someone out of place, all converging into a coherent pattern. The testimony is chilling in its clarity, the mundane details of childhood transformed into fragments of a carefully orchestrated horror, now illuminated under decades of scrutiny. Hensley presents forensic expert testimony, detailing chemical analysis, soil displacement, and DNA correlation. Each explanation reinforces the narrative, the evidence precise, unyielding, forming a latticework that withstands defense scrutiny. The courtroom absorbs each detail, the weight of scientific confirmation adding gravity to decades of uncertainty. Observers feel the presence of history, law, and persistence coalescing into a single trajectory, toward truth, toward accountability, toward justice long delayed. As the trial continues, subtle emotional currents ripple through the courtroom. Witnesses display nervous tension, the Carter family exudes a mixture of sorrow and resilience, the suspect shows micro-expressions revealing fleeting cracks in composure. Hensley remains a constant, focused, observing, guiding the proceedings with quiet intensity, aware that every gesture, every word, every pause carries significance. The narrative, decades in the making, moves inexorably forward, converging on resolution yet tempered by human complexity. The prosecution introduces new photographic evidence, images discovered in storage during renewed investigation. Faded photographs, slightly blurred but revealing critical locations, objects, even glimpses of Emily herself in contexts previously unknown. The courtroom reacts collectively, gasps, murmurs, subtle shivers of horror and fascination. These images bridge the decades, making tangible the intangible, illuminating the meticulous orchestration of the crime, and reinforcing the credibility of the investigative reconstruction. Hensley recounts the sequence of events, meticulously reconstructing the suspect's movements, interactions, and concealment strategies. Each detail interlocks, forming a coherent timeline from abduction to concealment, to discovery, to eventual apprehension. The courtroom listens, captivated, as the invisible hand of history is drawn into focus, revealing patterns previously obscured by time, forgetfulness, and deliberate obfuscation. The narrative is almost cinematic, a living tableau of tension, grief, and revelation. Karen Carter is called to testify regarding the emotional toll of Emily's disappearance. Her voice is steady yet heavy with decades of accumulated grief. She describes the void left in their home, the pervasive anxiety, the constant fear, and the enduring hope that kept her going. The courtroom is silent, absorbing the profound human dimension, the cost of a crime measured not just in years of absence but in every moment of anticipation, loss, and memory that followed. Paul adds his perspective, recounting endless nights searching, interactions with law enforcement, and the slow accumulation of hope and despair. Together, they humanize the narrative, transforming forensic precision into lived experience, raw and visceral. Cross-examination introduces tension, probing memory reliability, emphasizing the passage of decades, attempting to unravel the meticulous reconstruction of events. Hensley and the prosecution counter with precision, reinforcing the integrity of investigative procedures, the consistency of witness accounts, the strength of forensic evidence. Every attempt to disrupt the narrative is met with methodical rebuttal, reinforcing the trajectory toward justice. The emotional intensity crescendos as the trial nears its climax. Prosecutors articulate the impact on the community, emphasizing the pervasive fear, disruption, and trauma inflicted by a crime concealed for decades. Each detail of manipulation, concealment, and eventual discovery is highlighted, underscoring the meticulous and calculated nature of the perpetrator's actions. The courtroom feels the weight of history converging with present accountability, a collective recognition of long-delayed justice. Testimonies of investigative personnel illustrate the painstaking work of piecing together decades-old fragments. Every photograph, every trace of evidence, every interview contributes to reconstructing Emily's final hours before disappearance. The suspect's patterns, movements, and manipulations are outlined with meticulous clarity, painting a portrait of premeditated crime executed with methodical precision. Each revelation is a hammer striking at long-standing uncertainty, dismantling the layers of concealment and fear that have persisted for 20 years. Finally, the jury is sequestered, leaving the courtroom suspended in tension. The Carter family sits together, hands intertwined, absorbing the culmination of decades-long anticipation, trauma, and hope. Hensley steps outside, breath visible in the crisp air, eyes scanning the town, aware that beyond the courthouse walls, Millersburg collectively holds its breath. The narrative, decades in the making, hangs poised between anticipation and resolution, the weight of history pressing down, yet fragile threads of hope shimmering in the distance. The town reacts in collective anxiety. Citizens cluster near televisions, radios crackle with updates, and conversations revolve around speculation, hope, and apprehension. Millersburg is a community suspended between past horrors and present resolution, the echoes of Emily Carter's absence resonating in every home, school, and workplace. Parents clutch children more tightly, adults exchange wary glances, and the collective consciousness pulses with expectation. Hensley reflects on the journey, the patience, the meticulous reconstruction, the decades of dead ends, and the culmination of relentless pursuit of truth. The weight of responsibility remains, the understanding that while legal resolution may be imminent, emotional closure is a more fragile, evolving process. Every participant, from family to investigators to community members, is entwined in a narrative that has spanned decades, bridging absence and presence, trauma and anticipation, fear and hope. Even as the jury deliberates, tension persists. The courtroom and the town exist in a state of suspended resolution, the collective heartbeat of Millersburg synchronized to the outcome, every second stretching into eternity. The story of Emily Carter, once suspended in absence, begins to solidify into narrative, accountability, and potential closure, yet the emotional resonance of decades of uncertainty continues to ripple through the community. The courtroom, charged with anticipation, mirrors the broader impact on Millersburg. The shadow of 1999, long cast over the town, begins to lift incrementally, revealing both the contours of truth and the lingering fractures in communal memory. The Carter family, Detective Hensley, and the townspeople are united in shared experience, collectively navigating the precipice between revelation and closure, between horror remembered and justice pursued. And so, the narrative, once cold and dormant, now burns with intensity. Its trajectory, meticulously reconstructed, evidence meticulously gathered, and emotions carefully preserved, converges toward resolution. Millersburg watches, hearts tethered to anticipation, the Carter family poised between hope and fear, Detective Hensley a vigilant observer of justice bending, finally, toward truth. The courtroom, the town, and the past converge in breathless tension, the echoes of absence resonating with every heartbeat, every whisper, every unbroken thread of memory demanding acknowledgement, demanding resolution. The courtroom is heavy with anticipation, every breath drawn like a drawn-out cord of tension. Outside, Millersburg holds its collective breath, the town streets eerily quiet, as if the buildings themselves lean closer, straining to hear what will finally unravel. Detective Hensley sits with arms folded, notebook in lap, eyes scanning the suspect. The man's facade is slipping, small twitches, subtle glances, the tension coiling in the corners of his jaw. Years of secrecy cannot withstand the gravity of a courtroom alive with truth. Prosecutors introduce the final pieces of evidence, items long forgotten but recently unearthed during the meticulous excavation of the warehouse site, fragments of a notebook, partially burnt, yet legible in parts, small trinkets, toys, objects that belonged unmistakably to Emily, faint imprints of footprints on hardened soil, analyzed and matched with the suspect's shoe size. Each revelation lands with a visceral weight, sending ripples through the courtroom. Gasps, hushed whispers, the shuffle of feet as reality asserts itself in tangible, undeniable fragments. Karen Carter's hands tremble as she holds a locket found in the trench, the delicate chain a fragile tether to memory and loss. Her voice, though quivering, reads aloud Emily's initials engraved within. Each word reverberates across the chamber, drawing tears and swallowed gasps from those present. Paul's hand grips hers tightly, his jaw clenched, knuckles white, his own memories colliding with the evidence now laid bare. 2 decades of absence, longing, and unrelenting uncertainty converge in this fragile object, a witness to both time lost and truths recovered. Hensley observes the suspect closely. Micro-expressions flicker across the man's face, recognition, irritation, a fleeting panic contained within careful composure. The prosecutor presses, recounting movements meticulously reconstructed from years of evidence, witnesses, and forensics. The sequence of events emerges with clarity, the calculated approach, the abduction, concealment in isolated locations, manipulation of the environment to delay discovery. Each detail is precise, inescapable, a chronicle of methodical premeditation that extends the shadows of 1999 into the clarity of present scrutiny. A former neighbor testifies about noticing small, unusual disturbances around the shed over the years, scraps of fabric, footprints, the faint glint of metal objects peeking from under soil. These seemingly insignificant observations now gain extraordinary significance, connecting to the fragments recovered in the excavation. The courtroom is riveted, understanding the meticulous patience of the investigation, the painstaking work required to bridge decades of absence, misdirection, and time itself. The suspect shifts in his seat as DNA analysis is presented. Samples from the locket, fabric fragments, and soil residues match conclusively with him, corroborated by forensic specialists. The technical precision of the science leaves little room for dispute. He swallows, lips pressing together, eyes darting briefly toward the prosecution. Small twitches reveal stress, tension long contained now erupting subtly beneath the surface. Hensley notes each movement, aware that human psychology is as revealing as chemical analysis in exposing concealed truth. Defense attorneys interject, attempting to challenge the timeline, the interpretation of fragments, and the reliability of decades-old recollections. Yet every objection is met with corroboration from multiple sources, physical evidence, forensic reports, and witness consistency. The courtroom feels taut, the struggle between doubt and certainty coiling like a spring. The tension is almost unbearable, every individual acutely aware that the culmination of decades of fear, mystery, and trauma hinges on these final revelations. Karen and Paul sit side by side, absorbing testimony, evidence, and timelines, their emotional state oscillating between dread and hope. The trial has forced them to relive every detail of Emily's disappearance, to confront the orchestrated terror of her abduction, yet the tangible presence of evidence now provides a pathway to accountability. The emotional weight of decades is condensed into each moment, each fragment, each testimony that reconstructs a world that had been lost to absence. Hensley presents a visual reconstruction, a detailed schematic of locations, movements, and interactions, combining witness recollections, photographic evidence, and forensic analysis. The courtroom watches, silent, as years of uncertainty crystallize into a coherent narrative. Each line, each symbol on the diagram, corresponds to a fragment of reality, a thread in the tapestry that spans 2 decades. The suspect's body language shifts imperceptibly, micro-expressions betraying awareness, tension, the inevitable collapse of long-practiced deception under the relentless pressure of meticulous reconstruction. A forensic psychologist testifies, detailing the suspect's behavioral patterns, the premeditated manipulation, and psychological profiling consistent with the observed actions. The analysis contextualizes the crime within patterns of long-term concealment, highlighting both the calculated intelligence and the chilling disregard for human life. The courtroom absorbs this revelation, the layers of method and mind converging to illuminate the depth of the offense, its careful orchestration, and the extended impact on the community. New photographic evidence is introduced, old surveillance images, partially degraded but revealing, showing locations, objects, even fleeting glimpses of Emily in contexts previously undocumented. Each image is dissected, interpreted, and correlated with other evidence. The courtroom's collective tension is heightened with each slide, as the tangible reality of the crime confronts the decades-long absence, transforming uncertainty into understanding, terror into clarity. The suspect finally speaks, responding under questioning. His voice is measured, defensive, yet hints of unease seep through. Words are carefully chosen, evasions subtle, revealing both attempts at manipulation and moments of psychological unraveling. Hensley observes silently, noting every micro-gesture, every hesitation, every flicker of guilt or recognition. The courtroom watches, the drama electric, as the confrontation between decades of concealment and relentless pursuit of truth reaches an apex. Karen Carter's testimony underscores the human cost of prolonged uncertainty. She recounts the years of searching, the sleepless nights, the constant anxiety, and the enduring hope that kept her going. Each word is imbued with the raw weight of absence, the resilience of love and memory, the impact of decades-long trauma. Paul adds his voice, detailing efforts to maintain family, community, and personal stability amidst relentless uncertainty. The courtroom feels the gravity of human endurance intersecting with the mechanics of justice. Cross-examination attempts to undermine witness reliability, to question memory, and challenge interpretations. Yet the cumulative weight of evidence, physical, forensic, psychological, and testimonial, creates a lattice of truth resistant to distortion. Each challenge is met with precision, reinforcing the integrity of investigation and prosecution. The courtroom tension tightens, every individual acutely aware of the intersection between historical absence and present accountability. The jury, secluded for deliberation, carries the collective weight of decades. Millersburg waits beyond the courthouse walls, every resident tethered to anticipation, fear, and hope. Media coverage amplifies the collective consciousness, reporting minute details, reactions, and speculation. The Carter family, Detective Hensley, and the townspeople exist in a state of suspended resolution, the echoes of 20 years reverberating through every heartbeat. Inside the courtroom, procedural matters continue, but every moment carries the emotional and psychological residue of decades of unresolved trauma. Evidence is catalogued meticulously, witness recollections reaffirmed, and every detail cross-checked against decades of accumulated knowledge. The trial is more than legal process. It is the convergence of history, memory, and accountability, a relentless pursuit of truth crystallized into precise, tangible narrative. Even as deliberation begins, tension remains palpable. The courtroom, the town, and the Carter family exist in a liminal space, poised between revelation and closure, between despair and hope, between the long shadow of absence and the emergence of justice. Detective Hensley reflects on the decades-long pursuit, the patience, the meticulous reconstruction, and the relentless quest for truth, understanding that the outcome, while potentially final in legal terms, will echo in human memory for generations. The narrative of Emily Carter, once frozen in absence, begins to solidify into resolution. Every piece of evidence, every testimony, every fragment of memory contributes to the convergence of truth. The town, the courtroom, and the family collectively navigate the precipice of revelation, each heartbeat synchronized with anticipation, each whisper echoing the culmination of decades-long investigation and emotional endurance. The courtroom vibrates with an almost tangible electricity as the prosecution introduces the final, irrefutable pieces of evidence, the culmination of decades-long investigation crystallized into irreplaceable truth. Hensley watches silently, his eyes scanning the suspect, noting every subtle shift in posture, every twitch of the fingers, every flicker in the eyes that betray tension long buried beneath a decades-old facade. The man sits rigid, lips pressed tightly together, sweat forming imperceptible beads at the temple, the weight of 20 years finally manifesting in involuntary tremors. Karen Carter grips the armrest of her chair, knuckles white, pulse hammering in her ears. Her gaze locks on the evidence presented, a fragment of Emily's backpack, a carefully preserved hair strand, faint soil traces analyzed and matched to the suspect's shoes, items that carry the tangible weight of absence, memory, and stolen years. Every piece of physical proof becomes a hammer striking the walls of denial, a drumbeat of accountability echoing across the courtroom, resonating in the hearts of all present. Paul sits beside her, hand pressed over hers, grounding, steadying, yet the tension in his shoulders betrays the years of suppressed dread, the emotional scars of waiting for answers that never arrived. Hensley observes the suspect's micro-expressions with calculated precision. The man's eyes flicker, scanning the courtroom, the photographers, the press, the jury. Small tremors ripple through his body, subtle but revealing, a clenched jaw, a flicker of the eyelid, a foot tapping in barely perceptible agitation. The psychological pressure of decades of concealment converges in these moments, unearthing the fragile control he had maintained for 20 years. Every heartbeat, every silent movement, betrays the tension of a predator cornered at last. Witnesses recount final recollections. One elderly neighbor, voice trembling yet resolute, recalls the van near the riverbank, the fleeting shadow, the sense of unease carried over decades. Another witness confirms minor but crucial interactions, previously dismissed or forgotten, now corroborated by forensic reconstruction and photographic evidence. Each testimony adds layers of certainty, weaving an intricate lattice of narrative that binds past horrors to present accountability. The courtroom leans in collectively, aware that history and justice converge in this suspended moment. Karen is called to describe the impact of Emily's disappearance on the family. Her voice quivers but grows stronger with each word, the sleepless nights, the gnawing anxiety, the years of hope and despair interwoven, the societal whispers and the personal scars of relentless uncertainty. Paul follows, recounting the painstaking search for answers, the endless questions, the fragile hope maintained amidst unrelenting grief. Their testimony humanizes the abstract constructs of evidence, bringing raw, palpable emotion into the legal narrative. Every person in the courtroom feels the weight of 2 decades of absence concentrated in their words. Hensley presents detailed forensic reconstructions, meticulously charting movements, sequences, and interactions. Diagrams, photographs, soil analysis, and DNA evidence coalesce to form a comprehensive narrative, the suspect's calculated actions, concealment strategies, and the orchestration of disappearance. The courtroom absorbs the meticulous timeline, the invisible threads of premeditation made visible, the clarity of method emerging from the chaos of absence. Each revelation tightens the grip of reality, leaving the suspect with fewer avenues for evasion, no shadow large enough to conceal him from scrutiny. The prosecution introduces a final, damning photograph, Emily, small and unaware, near a location later tied to the suspect. The courtroom collectively gasps. Hensley watches the suspect's reactions, noting a flinch, a tightening of the jaw, a slight contraction in the shoulders. For decades he had moved undetected, blending into the fabric of Millersburg, yet the tangible presence of Emily captured in imagery, validated by corroborating evidence, pierces the armor of time and secrecy. Defense attorneys make a last-ditch attempt to discredit memories, challenge interpretations, and argue procedural ambiguity. Hensley observes the subtle futility, the carefully constructed network of evidence, the corroboration of witness testimony, the scientific precision of forensic analysis, forms a lattice impervious to dismantling. The courtroom holds its collective breath, the tension nearly unbearable, as the final threads of defense strain against an unyielding tide of truth. Witnesses recount details of the warehouse excavation, the faint impressions in soil, fragments of fabric, and objects connected directly to Emily. Each detail is scrutinized, analyzed, corroborated, painting a vivid portrait of concealed actions frozen in time. The courtroom feels the meticulous precision of investigation, decades of patient accumulation of knowledge, and the relentless pursuit of accountability. The past, long dormant, rises vividly, undeniable, unstoppable. Karen and Paul absorb each revelation, their emotions oscillating violently between relief, horror, and lingering grief. 2 decades of absence are distilled into tangible proof, reconstructing the lost threads of Emily's presence in their lives. Every exhibit, every fragment, every photograph becomes a conduit, connecting them to a daughter, a sister, a child erased from daily life yet resurrected in memory, evidence, and testimony. The suspect responds under intense questioning. His words are careful, measured, defensive, but the cracks in composure widen. Micro-expressions betray suppressed fear, panic, and perhaps recognition that the intricate web of concealment he had maintained for decades is now collapsing. Hensley notes the subtle, involuntary reveals, the tightening of fists, a brief gaze at the jury, slight flinches, shallow breaths, as the carefully maintained facade begins to crumble under the relentless weight of scrutiny. The prosecution closes with a detailed summary, highlighting the calculated premeditation, concealment strategies, and the emotional toll endured by Emily's family and community. Every piece of evidence, every witness account, every fragment from the past is tied together into a cohesive, unassailable narrative. The courtroom is silent, rapt, absorbing decades of trauma distilled into the tangible moment of confrontation. Outside the courtroom, Millersburg waits, holding its collective breath. Families, friends, neighbors, and strangers alike lean on radios, televisions, and phones, anticipating the outcome. The town, shaped by absence and uncertainty for 20 years, collectively bears witness to the culmination of a nightmare and the possibility of accountability. The streets are tense, hushed, pregnant with anticipation as if the town itself is listening for the final chord of truth. The jury returns after hours of deliberation. The air is electric, the courtroom tense beyond measure. Karen grips Paul's hand, the Carter family seated together, absorbing the gravity of the moment, feeling the culmination of decades of waiting, fear, and hope. Detective Hensley stands, calm yet alert, every sense focused on the subtle interplay of motion, expression, and anticipation as the foreperson begins to speak. The verdict is announced, a moment that slices through 20 years of silence and uncertainty. The courtroom reacts collectively, gasps, tears, murmurs, some of relief, some of disbelief. The suspect remains seated, momentarily frozen, the reality of accountability colliding with decades of concealment. Hensley observes quietly, recognizing the finality of the legal declaration while understanding that the emotional and psychological ramifications will ripple for years. Karen and Paul exhale, a mixture of relief, grief, and lingering sorrow flooding through them. The culmination of decades-long absence, the acknowledgement of truth, and the long-awaited accountability converge in a single, shattering moment. Millersburg collectively absorbs the resonance, the long shadow of 1999 finally intersecting with present clarity. Even as the trial concludes, the echoes persist, the absence that defined 2 decades, the trauma endured, and the resilience displayed. The Carter family begins the slow process of healing. Hensley reflects on decades of patient investigation, and the community contemplates both the horror of what transpired and the long-awaited restoration of truth. The cold case, once dormant, has ignited into clarity, accountability, and collective acknowledgement. Emily Carter's story, long suspended between absence and memory, now emerges as a testament to patience, investigative rigor, and the unyielding pursuit of justice. Millersburg watches, breath held, hearts tethered to closure, and the shadows of the past finally begin to recede, leaving scars, lessons, and the fragile promise of healing. The courtroom empties slowly, echoes of the verdict lingering like a tangible presence in the heavy air. Outside, Millersburg feels different, though the sun still glints off windows and sidewalks in the same way, though the wind still stirs the trees along the river road. The difference is subtle but undeniable. The long shadow of Emily Carter's absence has shifted, its weight less oppressive, its mystery no longer absolute. Detective Hensley steps onto the courthouse steps, inhaling deeply, eyes scanning the town that has held its breath for 20 years. Each face he sees carries relief, disbelief, and lingering fear, emotions that will not dissipate overnight, not even in years. Karen Carter stands near the courthouse steps, Paul beside her, their hands intertwined, shaking slightly from tension released after decades of relentless anticipation. The verdict, pronounced clearly, reverberates through them like distant thunder finally reaching land. Relief floods them, but it is layered, complex, mixed with the indelible imprint of grief and absence. For 20 years, every day had carried the echo of loss, the empty chair, the unsaid words, the silent bedroom. Now, pieces of Emily's story have been reclaimed, yet the memories of absence remain unerasable. Hensley observes quietly, aware that the end of legal proceedings is only the beginning of another process. Emotional closure is slower, messier, more fragmented than any forensic timeline, more intricate than any DNA sequence or reconstructed chronology. He watches the Carters slowly moving down the courthouse steps, pausing to acknowledge neighbors and journalists, their faces revealing the intricate layering of relief, sorrow, and lingering trauma. The town collectively exhales, a long, measured release, tempered by the awareness that healing is ongoing and multifaceted. Media cameras flash as the Carter family gives a brief statement. Karen's voice is steady yet emotive, the years of unanswered questions, the decades-long fear, the persistent hope. Paul's words are measured, emphasizing resilience and community support, the painstaking patience required to endure absence without succumbing to despair. The town listens, the nation listens, the story of Emily Carter's abduction and eventual resolution carried beyond Millersburg, a testament to perseverance, investigative diligence, and the fragile arc of justice that bends, eventually, toward accountability. Hensley returns to his cruiser later, scanning the streets now familiar yet transformed by the weight of revelation. Every corner, every building, every shadow carries memories of 2 decades of absence, yet also the glimmers of reclamation. Investigative notes, photographs, and forensic evidence flood his mind, but so do the subtler imprints: a mother's resilience, a father's silent endurance, a community's collective anxiety and eventual relief. The detective's work, meticulous and relentless, is validated, yet he knows that the emotional ramifications, the ripple effects of trauma, will persist long after the case file is closed. The suspect is escorted to a secure facility, handcuffed, expression controlled yet taut. For decades he evaded detection, blending seamlessly into the town's fabric, manipulating perception, and concealing actions. Now, confronted with incontrovertible evidence, his aura of control fractures subtly, revealed in fleeting gestures, a clenched jaw, a tightening grip, a fleeting glance toward the courtroom steps he will never again ascend freely. Hensley observes the procedural finality with professional detachment, aware that the human narrative, though constrained within legal boundaries, is richer, more textured, and persistently haunting. Millersburg adjusts to the aftermath. Conversations ripple through coffee shops, schools, workplaces. Neighbors recount their own memories, reflections on the years when Emily's absence hovered as an unspoken presence. Parents whisper caution to children, elders nod in quiet acknowledgement of collective fear endured, and the town slowly absorbs the reality of long-delayed accountability. Shadows of 1999 remain, etched in memory, yet light of resolution begins to illuminate the contours of history, trauma, and collective consciousness. Karen visits Emily's old bedroom, now reopened after decades. Dust motes shimmer in the afternoon sunlight, books untouched yet aligned on shelves, the familiar furniture bearing witness to absence. She touches the locket now preserved in evidence, tracing Emily's initials, imagining small fingers brushing past, a laugh interrupted, a life frozen. Paul joins her, observing quietly, the weight of 2 decades palpable in the stillness. Memories, grief, and relief converge in silence, a private tableau of loss, endurance, and tentative reclamation. Hensley walks along the river road later that evening, retracing old paths, revisiting landmarks tied to the investigation, the bridge where Emily was last seen, the overgrown bank where the fragment of her shoe was discovered, the shed where decades of concealment unfolded. Each location resonates with the echo of events long past yet freshly illuminated by truth. The wind stirs papers in his hand, the faint scent of wet earth rising, as if nature itself remembers the trajectory of loss and revelation, the interplay of time, human action, and justice finally served. The community organizes a small vigil, not for mourning but for acknowledgement. Candles flicker along the riverbank, faces reflecting light and shadow, representing collective memory, grief, and resilience. Families bring children, educators speak, neighbors recount fragmented recollections, and together, Millersburg shapes a narrative of remembrance, reflection, and tentative closure. The vigil is a testament to endurance, an acknowledgement that while justice has been served, the human impact of decades-long absence lingers, woven into the fabric of communal life. Forensics teams finalize their reports, documenting the chain of evidence meticulously, ensuring every fragment, every residue, every photograph is catalogued for posterity. Hensley reviews the final documentation, noting the convergence of decades of investigation, patience, and meticulous attention to detail. The case file, once dormant, now pulsates with clarity, closure, and the relentless imprint of justice pursued to its endpoint. The detective's satisfaction is tempered by the awareness that truth, while legally affirmed, remains intertwined with human memory, emotion, and consequence. Karen and Paul meet with support groups, sharing their story with families still navigating the shadow of uncertainty. They recount patience, grief, hope, and the resilience required to endure absence. Their words resonate deeply, offering guidance, solace, and validation to others whose lives have been similarly disrupted. Millersburg observes, learns, and absorbs the lesson of perseverance, acknowledging both the darkness endured and the reclamation of narrative made possible by relentless pursuit of truth. As evening falls, the town quiets. Streetlights flicker, windows glow with domestic life, and shadows of the past recede into corners of memory, though not fully erased. Hensley walks back toward his car, eyes tracing the river, the bridge, the shed. Each location holds layers of memory, absence, concealment, discovery, and resolution. He breathes deeply, aware that while the legal narrative has concluded, the human narrative will continue, threaded with grief, relief, and tentative healing. The Carter family sits together at home, absorbing the quiet aftermath. Conversations are sparse, words measured, each sentence carrying weight. The room holds memories and evidence of absence, yet also echoes of reclamation, closure, and tentative peace. The culmination of decades of fear, hope, and relentless pursuit of truth manifests in subtle gestures, holding hands, quiet laughter, reflective silences, and the shared understanding that life, though irrevocably altered, continues. Detective Hensley reflects on the trajectory of the investigation, the meticulous patience required, the decades of frustration, dead ends, and breakthroughs. He understands that the resolution of legal accountability, while profound, is but one dimension of a multifaceted human narrative. The emotional, communal, and psychological ramifications extend far beyond the courtroom, shaping memory, resilience, and collective understanding in Millersburg for generations to come. The town gradually adjusts to a new normal. Schools incorporate lessons about vigilance, safety, and community support. Families recalibrate routines, balancing the echoes of past trauma with hope for the future. Neighbors support one another, quietly, collectively acknowledging the depth of endurance required to face the unknown, to sustain hope, and to embrace resolution after decades of uncertainty. The shadow of 1999, though diminished, remains an indelible marker in the town's collective memory. Karen Carter places a small bouquet by the riverbank where Emily was last seen, a silent act of remembrance and acknowledgement. Paul stands beside her, observing quietly, understanding that the act of memorialization carries both grief and affirmation. The river flows uninterrupted, indifferent yet constant, a silent witness to history, trauma, and the eventual reclamation of truth. Each ripple echoes decades of absence, yet also the persistence of memory, resilience, and human connection. Hensley drives through Millersburg later that night, observing quiet streets, homes lit by domestic warmth, a town exhaling collectively. Every corner bears memory, every shadow resonates with events of the past. He reflects on the fragile balance between absence and presence, trauma and recovery, investigation and justice. The case, now resolved in legal terms, remains a living narrative in the community's consciousness, a reminder of vigilance, resilience, and the enduring pursuit of truth. Night settles over Millersburg with a quiet gravity, the town exhaling after decades of tension, yet the residual pulse of Emily Carter's story continues to thrum beneath the surface. Detective Hensley drives slowly along the river road, the headlights cutting through shadows of trees, each bend in the asphalt familiar yet now layered with memory. He recalls the early days of investigation, the dead ends, the false leads, the frustrating gaps in witness recollection, and the slow accumulation of small, almost imperceptible clues that eventually coalesced into undeniable truth. Every street, every house, every corner resonates with the echo of absence and revelation, the cityscape itself a silent witness to 20 years of suspense, grief, and relentless pursuit of justice. The suspect sits alone in his cell, confined but not broken, yet the psychological weight is palpable. 20 years of secrecy, meticulous planning, and manipulation collide now with enforced isolation, the constant scrutiny of legal and forensic documentation, and the public gaze that refuses to allow concealment. Subtle tics emerge, a hand rubbing the temple repeatedly, eyes darting toward imaginary observers, the faint pacing of the small, confined space. The mind, once controlled, now wrestles with unrelenting pressure, memories of actions carefully buried resurfacing, unbidden, impossible to ignore. Karen and Paul Carter awaken early, their routines altered by the aftershocks of closure. Breakfast is quiet, conversations sparse yet heavy with reflection. They discuss memorials, therapy sessions, and the tentative steps toward normalcy, aware that even with legal justice secured, the emotional journey will persist. Memories of Emily's laughter, her small hand in theirs, the invisible threads of presence now absent for decades, resurface in sharp, fleeting bursts. They cling to fragments, photographs, letters, the locket retrieved from the site, as tangible connections to a daughter lost yet partially reclaimed through evidence and memory. The town of Millersburg reacts with layered consciousness. Schools incorporate stories of vigilance, children's safety, and community responsibility. Neighborhoods host discussions, support circles, and reflective gatherings. The collective trauma of decades slowly converts into awareness, lessons learned, and communal resilience. Parents whisper cautionary tales to children, elders reflect on the long arc of fear and relief, and the streets, though quiet, vibrate subtly with the shared memory of absence and the weight of collective vigilance. Hensley reviews forensic reports again, meticulously checking every sequence, every chain of custody, every reconstruction of Emily's movements and the suspect's concealment strategies. The detective understands that while the courtroom has concluded its proceedings, the investigative narrative remains alive in the consciousness of all participants. Every detail preserved, every timeline validated, every fragment analyzed contributes to the ongoing narrative of accountability, memory, and the human consequence of actions stretched across decades. Psychologists working with the Carter family describe the persistent shadow of trauma, anticipatory anxiety, flashbacks, insomnia, and subtle hypervigilance that linger even after justice has been served. Karen acknowledges the years of waiting, the creeping dread that colored every moment, the isolation of knowing something terrible had occurred yet lacking confirmation or resolution. Paul reflects on the resilience required to maintain family and personal stability, the constant mental ledger of fear, hope, and despair meticulously balanced for 2 decades. Hensley observes their conversations with empathy, recognizing that human resolution is rarely linear, and the law addresses only one dimension of a complex, multifaceted truth. The suspect's psychological evaluation reveals a labyrinth of suppression, denial, and rationalization. For 20 years, he compartmentalized actions, memories, and emotions, creating a cognitive fortress against guilt and exposure. Now, forced to confront unassailable evidence, the mental constructs begin to crumble: insomnia, intrusive thoughts, minor panic episodes, and an inability to reconcile the meticulously curated self-image with the reality imposed by legal accountability. His confinement is not merely physical, it is a psychological crucible, a slow confrontation with time, truth, and the indelible consequences of action. Millersburg begins small acts of closure. Residents organize memorial walks along the river, lighting candles and leaving flowers near landmarks tied to Emily's disappearance. Conversations unfold, blending grief with resilience, absence with acknowledgement. Photographs are shared, letters read aloud, stories recounted, the community collectively processing both relief and residual trauma. Hensley observes these gatherings from the periphery, understanding that the communal narrative is as vital as legal resolution, that closure is experienced collectively, shaped by memory, emotion, and the passage of time. Karen revisits Emily's old bedroom, rearranging shelves, handling forgotten trinkets, and lingering over objects imbued with decades of memory. Each item is a portal: sketches Emily drew, books she loved, the faint scent of her presence lingering in fabrics long untouched. She speaks softly to Paul, recounting stories, imagining laughter, reconstructing the threads of life disrupted but not entirely erased. Their private moments are steeped in both sorrow and tentative reclamation, a balance between memory and grief, presence and absence. Hensley conducts follow-up interviews with key witnesses, ensuring the meticulous documentation of memory and observation remains intact. Each conversation reconnects fragments, validates details, and preserves narrative continuity for both legal records and historical record. Witnesses recount previously unmentioned observations, subtle recollections, and peripheral experiences that, while not altering the verdict, deepen the understanding of Emily's disappearance and the suspect's prolonged concealment strategies. The community continues to process the psychological aftermath. Families seek therapy, neighborhood watch programs expand, educators implement safety protocols, and communal reflection fosters both caution and cohesion. Millersburg, scarred yet resilient, integrates lessons learned into daily life, creating a collective memory that acknowledges absence, recognizes trauma, and celebrates the eventual reclamation of truth and justice. Hensley walks the riverbank at dusk, reflecting on the confluence of human behavior, forensic diligence, and procedural justice. The river flows steadily, indifferent yet attentive, carrying echoes of absence and resolution alike. He contemplates the fragile architecture of memory, the resilience of the human psyche, and the unrelenting pursuit of truth that has defined this case for decades. Each ripple mirrors both the violence of the past and the tentative calm of resolution, a natural rhythm juxtaposed with human experience. The suspect remains confined, undergoing psychological processing, forensic interviews, and legal assessments. His mind, once meticulously compartmentalized, wrestles with consequences, remorse, and the impossibility of reconstituting time lost or lives disrupted. Every memory of concealment, every detail of meticulous orchestration, resurfaces in the sterile, fluorescent-lit cells where reflection and accountability intersect. Hensley monitors reports with clinical precision, aware that while legal resolution has been reached, the psychological consequences unfold in a slow, relentless arc. The Carter family participates in support networks, sharing insights, strategies for coping, and reflections on patience, grief, and resilience. Their narrative becomes both a guide and a beacon, illuminating the path for others navigating long-term uncertainty, abduction trauma, and delayed resolution. Millersburg observes, learns, and absorbs the collective wisdom, transforming fear into structured vigilance, absence into memory, and trauma into shared resilience. Karen and Paul revisit the riverbank, placing small mementos where Emily was last seen, a tangible bridge between memory and reality. The act is quiet, private, intimate, yet imbued with public resonance, a collective acknowledgement of life interrupted, justice pursued, and memory preserved. The river flows unaltered, indifferent yet silently chronicling decades of human action, emotion, and consequence. Hensley reviews the case file one last time in his office, the weight of closure and understanding resting heavily on him. He reflects on the years, the meticulous investigation, the dead ends, and the eventual triumph of patience and methodical pursuit. The narrative of Emily Carter, once suspended in absence, now exists fully in record, memory, and communal consciousness, a testament to human persistence, resilience, and the slow but inevitable arc of justice.